Cathy Reynolds had spent the first half of her life believing she understood security, stability, and the quiet rhythm of a marriage and career, but the morning she found the credit card bills stacking higher than she could count, the notice of job termination in her inbox, and the shocking revelation that her husband, Mark, had been cheating for years, shattered all illusions she had carefully constructed. At 50, she felt the raw, aching vulnerability of a woman stripped bare of certainty. Her mind spinning with the ways she had failed to notice the cracks, the months of secret transfers, the furtive phone calls, and the smiles that had masked betrayal, while her daughter Lila, just 17, clung to her side, wide-eyed and frightened, sensing the magnitude of the storm yet too young to fully understand its implications, her small hand gripping Cathy's as if the physical connection could somehow anchor them both in reality. The financial chaos was immediate and suffocating. Mark had hidden debts, some in his name, some in hers, all reaching towards 6 figures, and phone calls from collectors began to sound like relentless drumbeats in her skull, a cadence of panic and despair she had never imagined she would hear, while fraudulent schemes cleverly disguised as investment opportunities clawed at her inbox, promising relief but demanding payment, and she, desperate and naive with worry, momentarily fell for one such scam, wiring a sum of $12,500 to a shadowy account and a promise of debt consolidation that evaporated within hours, leaving her feeling foolish and violated all at once. Her career, once a source of pride and identity, had become another arena of loss. The hospital where she had worked as an administrative manager for 22 years cited budget cuts, restructuring, and her lack of adaptability as reasons for termination, the words slicing through her dignity with a precision that left her hollowed out, yet the HR representative's polite, perfunctory tone only deepened her sense of alienation, reminding her that in a system governed by numbers and policies, humans' emotional lives were trivial, dispensable, and replaceable, and Cathy walked out of the office clutching a cardboard box of personal effects, each item a tiny talisman of a life that had suddenly become precarious, each paperclip and framed certificate a reminder of how quickly security could dissolve. She and Lila returned to their home, a modest 2-bedroom apartment in suburban Ohio, the walls now echoing the absence of the man who had promised loyalty, the silence screaming in ways that made Cathy's chest tighten, and yet amid the grief, there were flickers of resilience. Joanne, her closest friend since college, called repeatedly, showing up with casseroles, listening without judgment, and offering practical advice about budgeting, contacting lawyers, and managing debt, while Martha, a retired neighbor with a quiet strength and a penchant for wisdom, arrived with warm blankets and stories of her own difficult past, reassuring Cathy that recovery was neither linear nor impossible, that the human heart could mend even after betrayal and loss, and that in each day survived, each bill negotiated, each scam avoided, she was reclaiming a measure of control over a life that had been upended. Amid these painful realities, Cathy struggled with sleepless nights, replaying Mark's deceptions, the friendly smile he offered at breakfast while hiding financial transfers, the late nights he claimed were work trips that were actually visits to a lover's apartment, and she would awaken at odd hours, heart racing, imagining their future if she had made different choices, wondering if Lila would be permanently scarred by the fracture in her family, and yet even as despair threatened to dominate. Small moments of beauty persisted, Lila curling up beside her to read a novel aloud, Joanne bringing over coffee and staying for hours to talk, laughter erupting unexpectedly during a shared joke with neighbors, the first glimmer of snow falling against the window, a reminder that life's rhythm continued despite heartbreak. As Cathy navigated the labyrinth of creditors, she discovered more deceit. A medical bill she had assumed was covered by insurance turned out to be a collection notice, and when she attempted to dispute it, she realized that multiple agencies had profited from errors and omissions, leaving her exhausted and angry. Yet she began to build strategies, creating spreadsheets of her finances, identifying essential versus non-essential expenses, and learning about consumer rights, while she shared these lessons with Lila, who watched her mother with awe and concern, seeing not just vulnerability but the sparks of a resilience that had always existed beneath the surface. The pain of betrayal was compounded by guilt and shame. She caught herself wondering if she had been naive, blind, or weak, feelings that weighed heavily, particularly when interacting with friends or family who, despite their support, occasionally cast pitying glances or offered well-meaning but unhelpful advice. Cathy felt trapped in the emotional oscillation between despair and determination, each day a negotiation between the urge to collapse and the imperative to fight for herself and her daughter. Friends like Joanne became lifelines, helping her locate legitimate financial advisors, negotiating with creditors on her behalf, and even helping her find temporary freelance administrative work, which, while modestly paid, provided a sense of dignity and purpose, a reminder that Cathy was more than the sum of her losses and betrayals. Gradually, she began to see incremental victories. The scam's lost funds could not be retrieved, but she avoided additional pitfalls, recovered several smaller amounts through dispute processes totaling $1,800, and slowly reduced the mountain of debt to a manageable level of $35,000, each payment a symbol of regained agency. And while the journey was exhausting and emotionally turbulent, she learned to celebrate these small triumphs, allowing herself a glimmer of pride amid the ongoing storm. Emotional highs persisted as well. Weekends with Lila at the local library, teaching her to cook simple meals, decorating their apartment with handmade crafts, sharing quiet evenings watching classic films, or attending community events where Cathy met other women who had experienced hardship and emerged stronger, creating an informal support network that bolstered her spirit and offered tangible examples of recovery. Love, though tentative, also began to flicker. A colleague who had known her professionally offered kindness, a listening ear, and gentle encouragement, reminding her that connection was possible without risk of betrayal, and Cathy allowed herself to explore trust in a measured way, savoring small gestures, a cup of tea shared, a hand offered to steady her when icy sidewalks threatened, an invitation to join for casual dinners, without allowing past pain to dictate her openness entirely. Through the winter, Cathy experienced physical manifestations of her stress, aches in her back, migraines, and restless sleep, but also learned to tend to herself, regular walks with Lila, yoga videos in the living room, brief journaling sessions each night to process grief and hope, and small self-care rituals, like lighting candles, reading a favorite novel, or savoring chocolate in private moments. She documented her progress, tracking bills paid, scams avoided, freelance income, and emotional milestones, and over months, a clear pattern emerged. Survival was no longer reactive but deliberate, healing, though non-linear, was possible, and love, friendship, and self-respect were choices she could cultivate anew. By spring, the first anniversary of her financial collapse and marital betrayal approached, and Cathy marked it with a quiet reflection. She and Lila planted flowers on their balcony, discussed future goals, and Cathy acknowledged her own strength and growth with a tenderness she had long denied herself, feeling a surge of gratitude for those who had supported her, including Joanne, Martha, and the new friend she had cultivated along the way. Those scars remained, moments of flashback, pangs of loneliness, reminders of past gullibility. They no longer defined her. Instead, they became markers of resilience, lessons that allowed Cathy to approach life with a cautious optimism, fortified boundaries, and an enduring hope that the future could be brighter than the past. In this mosaic of pain and triumph, she realized that her journey had taught her the essential truth of human existence. Heartbreak could coexist with hope, betrayal could coexist with love, loss could coexist with recovery, and the heart, though battered, could still expand to hold new joys, new connections, and a renewed belief in the possibility of a life lived fully, intentionally, and authentically. With Lila by her side as both a witness and a companion, her daughter's laughter echoing as a constant reminder that despite every hardship, moments of beauty, grace, and fulfillment were always possible. As spring turned to early summer, Cathy found herself navigating a precarious balance between rebuilding her financial stability and nurturing the fragile threads of trust and joy in her life, a task that required vigilance, courage, and an almost constant emotional labor. Lila blossomed before her eyes, entering her final year of high school with a mixture of anxiety and determination, and Cathy dedicated herself to being both a mother and a mentor, helping her daughter with college applications, SAT preparation, and the social complexities of teenage life, even while managing overdue bills, court dates with creditors, and a new wave of unexpected expenses. like car repairs and medical co-pays, which constantly reminded her of the precariousness she still faced. Cathy's days began before dawn, sorting through emails from freelance clients, scheduling virtual meetings, preparing meals, and coordinating errands, all punctuated by moments of acute loneliness when the absence of Mark's companionship felt like a physical weight on her chest. Yet even in these moments, the presence of supportive friends like Joanne and Martha became lifelines, offering not just advice but emotional grounding, checking in daily with calls, texts, and visits, ensuring Cathy never felt entirely alone in what could have been an unbearable struggle. Financial recovery remained slow and exacting. The $35,000 debt, though already diminished, continued to loom over her, and when a second scam surfaced, a sophisticated phishing attempt that almost duped her into transferring $7,400, she realized how her vigilance and hard-won knowledge were critical defenses, and she felt a complex mix of frustration, fear, and cautious pride in having avoided yet another trap designed to exploit vulnerability. Work, meanwhile, evolved into both a challenge and a source of renewed identity. A former colleague referred her to a temporary position as an office coordinator at a small nonprofit organization, and although the pay was modest, Cathy discovered satisfaction in structuring the office, streamlining processes, and mentoring younger staff, witnessing in them echoes of herself before her life had unraveled, and she drew a deep, sustaining pride from seeing her contributions make a tangible difference, no longer defined solely by the betrayal and losses that had once consumed her. Socially, Cathy began cautiously rebuilding connections, joining local community groups, attending parent-teacher meetings, and participating in weekend volunteer projects with Lila, whose spirited energy reminded her that life's vibrancy could endure even in the shadow of pain. She met other parents and women who had faced unemployment, divorce, or financial ruin, and their shared stories of resilience offered both guidance and solace, proving that while trauma could be isolating, it could also be a bridge to authentic human connection. The emotional highs of these interactions were tempered by private grief. Cathy still remembered Mark's face in moments of anger and deceit, the first discovery of his infidelity, and the months of secrecy that had eroded trust, but she increasingly learned to compartmentalize those memories, acknowledging them without letting them dominate her present, and she found strength in the knowledge that confronting past pain did not prevent her from experiencing future joy. Lila's presence, especially, served as a living testament to resilience. Her laughter, her occasional teenage rebellions, her letters and drawings left for Cathy on the kitchen counter, all became reminders that love and family could endure beyond betrayal, that nurturing relationships could flourish even when the foundation of one parent's promise had cracked, and that Cathy's role was not to erase past pain but to teach adaptability, courage, and empathy in the face of life's unpredictability. Summer brought unexpected opportunities and challenges. A distant relative offered Cathy a modest loan of $5,000 to cover overdue bills with a stipulation of repayment over time, a gesture that stirred conflicted emotions of gratitude, humility, and guilt. At the same time, a freelance client defaulted on a payment of $2,300, forcing Cathy to engage in a stressful series of phone calls and legal reminders, a reminder that financial stability was a fragile, ongoing negotiation rather than a fixed achievement. Yet, through these struggles, Cathy felt herself transforming. The despair that had once threatened to swallow her entire existence had evolved into a quiet, persistent determination, a clarity of purpose, and a capacity for measured optimism that she had never known before. She found herself laughing more freely with Lila, feeling genuine curiosity about new projects, and even opening her heart cautiously to the possibility of love, trusting her instincts and her boundaries in a way she had never been able to when her trust had been so cruelly broken. Emotional complexity deepened as Cathy faced reminders of her former life, seeing Mark's name on shared accounts, receiving holiday cards addressed to the family he had fractured, and occasionally bumping into acquaintances who assumed their life together was intact, each encounter triggering waves of sadness, anger, and disbelief. Yet she learned to navigate these experiences with measured acceptance, drawing on the internal fortitude she had cultivated through months of conscious effort, therapy, and honest reflection. Moments of joy continued to emerge unexpectedly. A local art festival with Lila revealed shared creativity, as they painted small canvases together, and Cathy felt the tender thrill of having survived enough to find pleasure in the colors, sounds, and human interactions that life offered. Weekends spent biking through quiet suburban trails with Joanne provided not just physical exercise but emotional replenishment, as conversations flowed freely about dreams, fears, and the courage required to rebuild a shattered life. By late summer, Cathy had reached milestones she had once thought impossible. Her debt had been reduced to $22,000. Her freelance income had stabilized to provide modest but reliable monthly revenue, and her relationships with friends, neighbors, and community mentors provided a network of support that she could depend upon without shame. Most importantly, her relationship with Lila had deepened, grounded not just in love but in mutual understanding, shared resilience, and the knowledge that together they could navigate life's uncertainties with grace. Even Mark's sporadic attempts to reach out were met with firm boundaries. Cathy acknowledged his communications with calm courtesy but refused to re-engage emotionally, protecting herself and Lila while modeling integrity, self-respect, and emotional intelligence, a testament to how far she had come from the raw vulnerability of the year prior. Through these months, Cathy also began to document her journey, writing journals filled with financial tracking, emotional reflections, and personal growth milestones, recognizing that the act of recording her progress not only provided clarity and accountability but also allowed her to witness the full arc of her recovery, creating a narrative of survival and empowerment she could revisit in moments of doubt or fatigue. This period also revealed the nuanced interplay between hardship and human kindness. Small gestures, a neighbor bringing over a pie, a mentor offering guidance, a friend sending encouragement via text, took on extraordinary significance, reaffirming her belief that life's beauty and love could coexist with pain and struggle, and that intentional community and connection were among the most reliable sources of emotional and practical support. By autumn, Cathy felt a newfound steadiness. While she still experienced moments of sadness, flashbacks, and fatigue, these were balanced by confidence, competence, and an emerging peace. She had learned to budget thoughtfully, anticipate scams, navigate financial institutions, engage in the workforce creatively, support her daughter academically and emotionally, and maintain meaningful relationships, all while confronting the lingering effects of betrayal and loss without allowing them to define her. She and Lila created new traditions: weekly Sunday dinners, monthly park outings, and annual mini-vacations to the nearby lake, which became markers of joy and continuity, offering tangible proof that life could be reconstructed with intention, care, and courage, that happiness was possible even after deep betrayal, and that love, while fragile, could be nurtured and restored in new forms, grounded in honesty, trust, and mutual respect. These experiences crystallized an essential truth for Cathy: survival was not simply the absence of pain, but the active cultivation of resilience, the conscious embrace of hope, and the creation of a life rich in connection, meaning, and small but profound joys. And she embraced this truth with the quiet satisfaction of one who has witnessed the darkness yet refuses to be consumed by it, holding her daughter's hand firmly as they walked toward a future no longer dictated by betrayal, loss, or uncertainty, but by the deliberate, tender, and hopeful choices they now made together. As autumn deepened into the crisp chill of early winter, Cathy Reynolds found herself reflecting on the arc of her life with a mixture of exhaustion, pride, and quiet awe, recognizing that the turbulence of the past 2 years, Mark's betrayal, financial ruin, scams, and job loss, had forced her to confront both her vulnerabilities and her strengths in ways she never could have anticipated. And though moments of despair still arrived uninvited, they were now tempered by a resilience and clarity that had been forged through hardship. She had learned to navigate financial institutions with a keen eye, preventing additional losses from scammers and carefully monitoring each transaction, all while balancing the unpredictable challenges of freelance work, which sometimes provided unexpected windfalls of income and at other times required her to negotiate late payments or walk away from clients who proved unreliable. A tension that constantly reminded her of the fragility of economic security and the necessity of vigilance. Lila, now nearing the end of her senior year, was thriving academically and socially, her achievements a source of pride and emotional sustenance for Cathy, who had dedicated herself not only to managing household responsibilities and finances but also to nurturing her daughter's emotional resilience, attending every school event she could, helping with college essays, and staying up late some nights proofreading applications or offering encouragement in the small hours when Lila's anxiety threatened to overwhelm her. Each success, no matter how small, became a shared triumph, a reminder that love, attention, and consistency could counteract some of the instability Cathy had experienced in her own life. Meanwhile, Cathy's relationships outside the home continued to strengthen, evolving into a genuine network of support that included Joanne, who had become almost family, showing up during crises, celebrating small victories, and offering honest, sometimes tough guidance, and Martha, whose quiet wisdom often provided perspective in moments of emotional turmoil, reminding Cathy that resilience was not just about surviving disaster but also about cultivating the capacity to feel, process, and respond thoughtfully, lessons that shaped her into a more intentional and self-aware individual. In her professional life, Cathy discovered both challenges and unexpected fulfillment. She had been offered a part-time managerial role at a different nonprofit, a position that promised slightly higher income but required her to adapt to new processes and navigate office politics she had long avoided, yet the work energized her, offering purpose and the chance to mentor younger colleagues who reminded her of the potential for growth even in midlife, and she gradually built a reputation for reliability, insight, and empathy that contrasted sharply with the instability of the previous year, reinforcing a sense of regained competence and dignity. Financially, her life remained a delicate balancing act. The debt had been further reduced to $15,000 through disciplined budgeting, careful negotiation with creditors, and partial repayment plans, and though each month brought its own anxieties about bills, unexpected expenses, and freelance income variability, Cathy increasingly approached these challenges with a sense of mastery rather than fear, understanding that setbacks would occur but believing in her capacity to respond effectively. A mindset shift that profoundly altered her relationship with stress. Socially, Cathy allowed herself to cautiously explore new connections beyond her established network of friends and neighbors. She joined a local book club and a creative writing group, spaces where she could engage intellectually, share her experiences in controlled ways, and witness the resilience and creativity of others, and these interactions offered both stimulation and solace, reminding her that personal growth was possible even when circumstances remained challenging. Despite these strides, the emotional weight of betrayal lingered, manifesting in occasional sleepless nights, moments of anger when memories of Mark surfaced, and brief periods of anxiety when Lila mentioned events or milestones Mark might have attended had their marriage remained intact. Yet Cathy increasingly relied on introspection, journaling, and conversations with Joanne to process these feelings, learning to hold them without letting them dominate her day-to-day existence, and in doing so, she cultivated a more nuanced understanding of grief, one that accepted lingering pain while making room for joy, hope, and forward motion. The winter months brought both unexpected heartbreak and profound comfort. A medical scare concerning Lila, initially terrifying, turned out to be minor, yet the experience strengthened Cathy's resolve to prioritize health, well-being, and preparedness, and she arranged for regular checkups, emergency savings, and emotional preparedness plans, realizing that proactive care could prevent small crises from becoming overwhelming. At the same time, the small joys of baking with Lila, decorating their modest apartment, and sharing quiet evenings together reinforced the deep bond between mother and daughter, a connection that had been tested and strengthened in equal measure by past hardships. Cathy also began to recognize the subtle ways she had grown emotionally. She could forgive herself for mistakes made in desperation, such as the initial scam payment of $12 of $500, while understanding the importance of learned vigilance. She could establish clear boundaries with people who posed potential harm, including distant family members who had offered well-meaning but overbearing advice. And she could find satisfaction in her work, her parenting, and her self-care without guilt or shame, recognizing that survival and happiness were not mutually exclusive. In matters of the heart, Cathy cautiously allowed herself to consider companionship again. She met a man, Thomas, through a volunteer organization, a quiet, steady individual who shared her values, respected her past, and offered kindness without intrusion, and their interactions, though tentative and measured, reminded her that connection, trust, and love could exist again, even after deep betrayal, if approached with care and discernment. Through these months, Cathy continued to refine her emotional and financial strategies, meticulously tracking expenses, avoiding further scams, and cultivating healthy work-life boundaries, while also savoring moments of beauty and connection, a sunrise during a morning walk, laughter shared over a cup of coffee with Joanne, a spontaneous snowball fight with Lila, or the completion of a creative project in her writing group, each instance reinforcing the fragile yet enduring nature of joy. By late winter, Cathy reached a symbolic milestone. She had nearly cleared her debt entirely, down to $7,500. Her income had stabilized sufficiently to cover all recurring bills and modest discretionary expenses, and she had established a safety net for unexpected emergencies, providing a sense of security she had not felt in years. These tangible victories were mirrored by emotional growth, as she could now reflect on past trauma with acknowledgement rather than torment, offer empathy to others facing hardship, and maintain a cautious but genuine openness to trust, friendship, and love. The culmination of these experiences instilled in Cathy a profound appreciation for the human capacity to endure and thrive. She recognized that heartbreak, financial hardship, and betrayal, while profoundly painful, could coexist with moments of tenderness, humor, connection, and hope, and that the deliberate cultivation of resilience, emotional intelligence, and community support could transform a life once defined by loss into one rich with possibility, meaning, and love. Even Mark's intermittent attempts at contact, though painful, no longer held dominion over her emotions. She responded with calmness and boundaries, understanding that closure and peace were internal processes she alone could command, and that her future, though unpredictable, was now guided by intentional choice rather than reactive survival. By spring, the final months of Lila's senior year brought a sense of triumph and continuity. Graduation plans proceeded smoothly, college acceptance letters arrived, and Cathy and Lila shared quiet celebratory moments that underscored both their resilience and their bond, offering a tangible testament to the power of persistence, love, and steadfast determination in the face of adversity. Cathy, sitting quietly one evening with Lila asleep beside her, reflected on the years of heartbreak, financial chaos, and betrayal, recognizing that the journey had reshaped her not merely through suffering but through growth, learning, and the conscious effort to cultivate hope, joy, and agency. She understood that peace was not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of one's inner life in harmony with external realities, a lesson she carried with deep gratitude, serenity, and a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that she had emerged stronger, wiser, and capable of both giving and receiving love in ways that honored her experiences while embracing the promise of the future. Spring unfolded in its full vibrancy, carrying with it a sense of renewal that Cathy embraced with a mix of cautious optimism and quiet exhilaration. The air smelled of fresh blooms and warm rain, and every small outdoor excursion with Lila reminded her of the beauty that persisted even amid prior pain, a tangible counterpoint to the memories of betrayal, financial instability, and deceit that had shadowed the previous years. Lila's graduation approached, a milestone that carried both joy and a twinge of melancholy for Cathy, as the thought of her daughter stepping into the wider world stirred a mixture of pride, excitement, and the inevitable anxiety of letting go. Yet Cathy had nurtured independence and resilience in her, teaching Lila not only practical skills and emotional intelligence but also how to navigate life with courage and integrity, qualities Cathy herself had had to cultivate after her marriage dissolved and her financial security crumbled. The final months leading to graduation were filled with bustling activity, coordinating with colleges, planning celebrations, and managing the small crises that inevitably arose, from last-minute scholarship forms to minor medical concerns and the occasional emotional outburst from Lila, who was simultaneously overwhelmed by academic pressures and excited by the threshold of adulthood. Through it all, Cathy navigated each challenge with patience and grace, drawing upon the network of friends, mentors, and supportive community members she had cultivated over the years, recognizing that the ability to ask for help was not weakness but a sign of resilience. Financially, Cathy had achieved remarkable stability compared to her darkest months. Her debt was fully repaid, standing now at zero. Her freelance work and part-time nonprofit job provided steady income, and she had set aside an emergency fund, ensuring that the small misfortunes that had once threatened to unravel her life could now be met with preparedness and confidence. A reality that was both exhilarating and affirming, proof that months of meticulous planning, sacrifice, and persistence had borne tangible fruit. Yet, the emotional terrain was never simple. Memories of Mark's infidelity occasionally resurfaced in quiet, unguarded moments, a reminder of the pain she had endured, the nights of sleepless worry, the disbelief at betrayal, and the profound sense of loneliness that had accompanied her early recovery. But these reflections were now tempered by perspective, gratitude, and a recognition of how far she had come, and Cathy had learned that acknowledging past hurt without allowing it to dictate present happiness was an essential part of her healing, a skill she modeled for Lila in subtle and profound ways. Moments of joy punctuated the season, an impromptu picnic in the park where Lila's laughter echoed across the grassy expanse, the smell of baking bread filling their modest apartment, and quiet evenings spent with Joanne or Martha, sharing stories, laughter, and the comforting rhythm of companionship, all served as reminders that life could be both tender and fulfilling, even after profound adversity. Romantic possibilities began to surface gently, without urgency or pressure, as Cathy explored a connection with Thomas, whose presence offered stability, kindness, and companionship without intrusion, a contrast to the turmoil she had endured with Mark. Their relationship unfolded slowly, deliberately, rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and an understanding that healing from deep betrayal required patience. And in their tentative interactions, quiet coffee dates, shared volunteer efforts, and long conversations about life, work, and dreams, Cathy felt a cautious but genuine warmth, an emotional richness that had seemed unattainable just a few years prior. The graduation ceremony arrived, an emotionally charged event that brought both tears and laughter. Cathy watched Lila walk across the stage, receiving her diploma with a mixture of poise and exuberance, and the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming, not only for Lila but also for Cathy, whose sacrifices, guidance, and unwavering support had played an integral role in this moment, a tangible affirmation that love, resilience, and determination could yield remarkable outcomes even in the aftermath of heartbreak and financial ruin. In the weeks following, as Lila prepared for college and moved into her first dorm, Cathy found herself navigating an empty nest with the same measured attentiveness she had applied to previous challenges, creating routines that nurtured her own well-being, pursuing creative writing projects she had long deferred, and deepening her relationships with supportive friends, all while adjusting to the subtle but profound shift in household dynamics, a period that invited reflection, gratitude, and the opportunity to explore personal growth beyond the scope of parenting responsibilities. Financially, Cathy continued to thrive, investing in her professional development, saving for future plans, and managing her income with a disciplined precision born of years of necessity, transforming the anxiety that once dominated her life into a sense of empowerment and mastery over her circumstances, a metamorphosis that extended into her emotional life, as she cultivated mindfulness, emotional regulation, and the capacity to celebrate small victories without fear of loss or disappointment. The cumulative experiences of heartbreak, financial struggle, and personal growth had left indelible marks. Cathy was more attuned to both her own needs and the needs of others, capable of offering empathy without being consumed by obligation, assertive without being harsh, and loving without losing herself, a transformation that became visible in her interactions with friends, colleagues, and Lila, all of whom responded to her stability, warmth, and emotional depth with affection and trust. The coming months brought subtle, yet profound, moments of peace, quiet mornings spent reading by the window, spontaneous weekend drives to the countryside, writing letters to friends she hadn't seen in years, and the gentle rhythm of daily life, punctuated by laughter, occasional tears, and the satisfaction of accomplishments, both large and small, that were hard-won through years of struggle, yet deeply cherished because of the effort required to achieve them. Even the specter of past scams and financial threats, once sources of terror, now served as reminders of lessons learned, a cautionary narrative that reinforced diligence, patience, and practical wisdom, and the capacity to recover and move forward without resentment or fear, a testament to the depth of her resilience. Cathy's relationship with Thomas deepened, built on trust, shared interests, and the recognition of past vulnerabilities, and while cautious, it allowed her to experience the thrill of connection, laughter, and companionship without the shadow of betrayal, highlighting her capacity for hope, discernment, and emotional intelligence in ways that were both deeply satisfying and profoundly healing. By late spring, as flowers bloomed once more and the air warmed with the promise of summer, Cathy and Lila shared a moment of quiet reflection on the balcony, watching the city awaken below, recognizing the extraordinary journey they had traversed, a passage marked by heartbreak, financial instability, deception, and pain, but also by resilience, love, learning, and the unwavering bond between mother and daughter, a bond that had proven capable of withstanding life's harshest tests while simultaneously nurturing growth, joy, and hope. In that still, luminous moment, Cathy felt a profound sense of closure. The tumult of the past years, though never forgotten, had been transformed into a foundation of strength and clarity, a scaffold upon which the next chapter of life could be constructed, filled with intention, possibility, and peace, and she understood, deeply and irrevocably, that she had not merely survived the hardships thrust upon her, but had emerged as a woman capable of joy, connection, and love, ready to embrace life's unpredictability with courage, patience, and a heart unburdened by resentment or fear, secure in the knowledge that she and Lila could face the future together, fortified by experience, wisdom, and an enduring love that had been tested, refined, and proven indestructible. Summer arrived with a gentle warmth that seemed to mirror the serenity Cathy now felt, a sense of equilibrium she had not known for years, and as she moved through the sunlit days, she was struck by the quiet power of endurance and the unexpected joys that had emerged from so much hardship. The apartment she shared with Lila, once a place filled with tension, bills piling up, and the echoes of arguments past, now resonated with laughter, shared meals, and the soft hum of music during evenings spent writing, reflecting, or simply enjoying one another's company, and Cathy felt a profound gratitude for the ordinary moments that had once seemed impossible to savor amid the chaos of debt, scams, and betrayal. Lila's first weeks of college were a revelation, filled with excitement, challenge, and growth, and while Cathy experienced the natural pangs of separation, she recognized that her daughter's independence was a testament to both Lila's strength and the loving, steadfast guidance Cathy had provided over decades of shared struggle, and each phone call or video chat reinforced the bond between them, a reminder that love could endure distance, uncertainty, and the passage of time without losing its potency. Professionally, Cathy's life had taken on a rhythm that balanced financial stability, meaningful work, and personal fulfillment. Her part-time nonprofit role continued to provide both income and purpose, while freelance projects allowed her to express her creativity and build a portfolio that reflected her talents, proving to her that she could forge a professional identity resilient to the instability that had once threatened her very livelihood, and she took pride in mentoring younger colleagues, offering guidance that was informed by her own lessons learned in adversity. Thomas remained a quiet, steady presence in her life, their relationship evolving naturally through shared experiences, mutual respect, and the comfort of understanding, and while Cathy approached the connection without urgency, she allowed herself to savor the moments of warmth, laughter, and companionship that underscored the reality that love, though sometimes delayed or tentative, could flourish again even after betrayal and heartbreak, a possibility she had once feared had been lost forever. Socially, Cathy deepened her engagement with her community. She hosted small gatherings of friends, joined civic initiatives, and volunteered at local programs supporting women who faced financial or personal hardships similar to those she had endured. And in these interactions, she discovered the profound satisfaction of using her experience to empower others, transforming her pain into purpose and connecting with people who both inspired her and reminded her of the resilience inherent in the human spirit. Financially, Cathy had not only regained security but had begun to cultivate a sense of abundance. Her debts were fully repaid, her emergency fund provided peace of mind, and careful investment and budgeting allowed her to plan for both Lila's education and her own future, a stark contrast to the despair of years past, when every unexpected expense threatened to unravel her fragile stability, and the knowledge that she could now navigate financial uncertainty with confidence brought a deep, sustaining relief. Emotionally, Cathy's journey had been equally transformative. The heartbreak inflicted by Mark's infidelity, the sting of betrayal, and the despair of financial loss had not disappeared, but they had been reframed as sources of wisdom, resilience, and self-knowledge, and she carried them as quiet markers of growth rather than burdens of shame, enabling her to move through life with empathy, patience, and a grounded sense of self-worth that radiated in her relationships and daily interactions. Cathy's bond with Lila, strengthened by shared trials and triumphs, became the anchor of her life, and even as her daughter navigated college, she found joy in observing Lila's emerging independence, courage, and kindness, understanding that the values instilled through years of love, discipline, and attentive guidance had taken root, a living testament to the power of maternal dedication, resilience, and unwavering support in shaping a life capable of both joy and accomplishment. The shadows of past hardships occasionally surfaced, a momentary worry about a scam or financial decision, a fleeting pang of anger or sorrow when thinking of Mark, or a reflective melancholy recalling the nights spent in uncertainty and fear, yet these moments no longer dominated her consciousness. Instead, they were reminders of the depth of her endurance, the clarity of her priorities, and the courage required to rise above adversity, and Cathy had learned to meet them with mindfulness, acceptance, and the confidence born of lived experience. Community continued to play a vital role in her recovery and fulfillment. Joanne remained a steadfast friend and confidant, Martha offered her sage advice and emotional grounding, and other friends, neighbors, and colleagues provided laughter, connection, and practical support, all of which reminded Cathy that life was not meant to be faced in isolation, and that the cultivation of trust, generosity, and reciprocal support formed the foundation of a life rich in meaning, love, and resilience. Cathy also discovered the quiet, sustaining power of self-reflection, creativity, and personal rituals, morning walks in the park, journaling by the window as sunlight streamed across her apartment, writing letters or short stories, and even tending a small herb garden on her balcony became practices that fostered mental clarity, emotional processing, and the ability to appreciate life's small but profound pleasures, all of which contributed to an inner peace that had once seemed unattainable. By late summer, Cathy and Lila shared a serene evening on the balcony, watching the sun set behind the skyline, a ritual that had grown into a space of reflection, gratitude, and connection. In that moment, Cathy acknowledged the full arc of their journey, from despair, betrayal, and near collapse to resilience, love, and renewal, and felt a profound sense of closure, understanding that the challenges of the past had shaped her into a woman capable of sustaining hope, navigating uncertainty, and embracing life with courage and grace. The culmination of years of struggle, heartbreak, and perseverance had forged in Cathy an enduring clarity. She had confronted financial ruin, personal betrayal, and emotional devastation, yet emerged with stability, purpose, and an appreciation for life's complexity and beauty, and she now held the knowledge that peace was not a static state but a practice, nurtured daily through intention, connection, and self-awareness. As Lila prepared for the next chapter of her life, Cathy found herself equally poised to step into hers. She planned travels she had postponed, explored writing projects that had once seemed impossible, and embraced opportunities for personal and professional growth that reflected not only ambition but also a newfound understanding of what it meant to live fully, with intention, balance, and joy. Thomas's presence, while still gentle and unassuming, offered a quiet promise of companionship that complemented her independence rather than overshadowed it, and Cathy appreciated the slow unfolding of intimacy, trust, and partnership, recognizing that love, when approached with patience and self-knowledge, could enhance life without compromising autonomy or resilience. Ultimately, Cathy understood that the trials of the past, Mark's infidelity, the scams, financial devastation, and the loss of stability, were chapters in a larger narrative of transformation, and though the scars remained as reminders of vulnerability, they also stood